Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. Today I am invisible and joined by another invisible man. It's time for another what was it? Nubbad or EharNub podcast? I can't remember. How are you
Oh, I
doing,
can't remember
Eharbad?
what we called it.
Yeah, I've forgotten. Most professional podcast ever. Don't even know the name of our own show.
We should have checked that before we started.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, people are watching it. They know. I've clearly sorted it out when I uploaded the video. It's all fine. If we said nothing, they never would have known. Before we
Sure, it's
dive
something
into
to
our...
look forward to later as well, because
Oh,
I'll get to find out when you upload it.
yeah. Amazing, amazing. But we've got a few topics to dive in today. We're going to talk about siege mode. We've had a couple of siege battles, so give sort of both our perspectives on that. And obviously, clearly, no problems at siege mode at all. I'm sure we'll have nothing to talk about there. We're going to talk about Cursed City and why it is so unpopular. We're going to talk about this potential new dungeon. I'm sure that's the thing on everyone's mind at the moment. This new dungeon that was on the test server. Is that coming? Is that going to tie into Loki, who has been revealed as a champion that's coming to the game? We'll talk then, of course, about, is this, doing some Norse mythology stuff? Is that a stab at Fateless or not? And finally, Eharbad, you considering leaving the game. You're kind of very much ramping up towards it or ramping down towards it. I don't know what to say, but yeah. Anything you want to
On
say?
the exit ramp, anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, anything you want to say before we dive in, or will we dive straight into to siege mode?
Yeah, I mean, I think let's go through the topics as you said, and then we can talk about my potential exit
Yes.
from the game at the end. Give the
Yes.
viewers something to look forward to.
Oh, some juicy gossip at the end. I'm sure we will have zero, segues, zero, yeah, no diversions along the route. We'll stay very much focused and not get distracted. So, yeah, let's go. I mean, first of all, I think for me, big question for you overall: are you enjoying Siege? That's really the key thing, isn't it? First two sieges, fun or not fun?
I think, from my perspective on the experience I had, we won both sieges, so obviously that
Hmm.
will skew the results. I quite enjoyed it overall. It's relatively, I'd say, low touch. Like, it doesn't take that much time. It's not that involved, so it's quite a nice sort of bit of content on the side. I enjoyed the breadth of champions I had to use. I had to be quite creative on the attacks, particularly once you start farming the mana shrines, because I just don't have enough champions built that are really that viable
Right.
to to have. I don't know how many attacks do we have to do in the end, like
Oh, it's
15,
a
I
huge
think it is.
amount. Like, yeah, you've got 6 teams per mana shrine, so that's like
Yeah, so that's
12 mana
12, and then
shrines.
you have another 3 attacks on top of that. So that's
Yeah.
15 attacks, and you can only use a champion 2 times. So, generally speaking, from tag team and live arena, we've got between 12 to 15 champions that are kind of well built and well optimized for arena.
Hmm.
And this goes way beyond those 15 champions in terms of what you need. And
Yes.
I quite enjoyed that. I worry about the long term though, because I think it's so reliant on the matchmaking system, and we've seen matchmaking in play in this game
Hmm.
in things like Live Arena, Hydra Clash, and particularly CBC.
Yes.
And
Well,
particularly like those clan-based ones, people, should we say, abuse
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
quite considerably.
I mean, I'll just jump in and give you an example right here. And this is something our clan, I'll be honest, did way more extensively. But we can see the enemy clan doing it a bit, which is just throwing in one-man attacks and losing intentionally. Now, this is in mana shrines. I don't know if it's that useful, but you can do this on just normal attacks. Like, you can jump in against, let's say, I don't know, Defense Tower 3 and just lose a bunch of fights on purpose. Why would you do that? Well, it's because you want to keep your victory score low. Like, so for us, we're well into tier 6. Every extra point for winning a battle is just giving us a harder fight the next time. So we want to lose fights on purpose. So that's totally what we're doing. It's totally what the enemy clan is doing here as well. And that is absolutely... Now, this one is weird. I have no idea. This seems to say that a single Helior beat this team. I don't know what's going on there. That's very strange. But Yeah, this I think this is going to be a major problem, certainly for tier 6, where people will absolutely be manipulating their score. Like you said, it's the exact same thing you see in CVC, in Hydra Clash. It's going to be the same here. And I mean, it's great for big clans like us, and it's very bad for smaller clans that are legitimately near the bottom of tier 6, for instance, or again, yeah, like sort of tier 6 in CVC as well. You just end up having to fight really tough clans. So there you go. Already, matchmaking manipulation, it's already happening. It's live. So, yeah, fun facts.
Yeah, and I mean, in that regard, we didn't manipulate our score, and we're at 29-36, so we're probably
Ooh, ooh.
about to get
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
decimated.
Yeah, you're gonna be destroyed, man. Wow. We had a little bit of help. Like the art, it was a fairly actually tough fight back and forth. Like as you can see, they destroyed most of our base. They took over most of the posts as well. A couple of the towers survived. Like this mana shrine over here, we held on barely. Like our last defense just about made it. I think they ran out of stuff to counter an Ancora and Arceus at the end. They just had nothing left. But our stronghold is gone. Most of our stuff's gone. So yeah, that helped us get a bit of a lower score as well. But yeah, you're gonna get smashed next time, man. Probably
Yeah,
it's gonna be a
most likely.
bloodbath.
And I think the other concern, so we've got the matchmaking, which
Yeah.
I think long term, if it works well, it will make very equal battles, which gives us really that segue into the whole win conditions.
Mm,
If you have really even battles, you're going to end up with a lot of draws, and is everyone going to get kind of frustrated?
yeah.
Or people are going to abuse the matchmaking, and you'll just get people consistently steamrolling. At which point, is it an interesting competitive mode, or is it effectively at that point just becomes another bit of PvE because there's no competition? And that's kind of a bit of a concern. It's the win conditions. You know,
Hmm.
the fact that you have to have a successful attack or defense to get the rewards means people having to be like win trading almost, at least within the clan. You have to wait, make sure everyone gets their 30 battles in. You know, each member gets their first battle in before you then use the rest of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just a whole lot of management from a clan perspective,
Hmm. Yeah. No, it
but
is
not in a
100%
fun
true.
way.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's been really fun as a single player to come in and be like, oh, which defenses can I attack? What teams would I use? And again, you've got the mana shrines to play around, and that's ridiculously hard because you just don't have enough gear. I actually, people were saying that probably the really annoying tokens that constantly pop up, the Cursed City free gear removal, that those seem much more designed for Siege than they do for Cursed City, because like in Cursed City we'll talk about, but Matt, you could easily spend an hour doing a single post, and a 1 hour free gear swap not going to help you much, whereas in Siege, pop that thing and you could do a few mana shrine fights and swap all your gear around to other champs within that.
Absolutely.
But
But it just feels a bit cheap. Like I when I did all my attacks, the one
right.
thing I didn't do was swap gear around. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the gear I've got on the champions. Let me go in and kind of do it authentically. But you're right.
Yeah.
Those 1 hour free regears are perfectly timed for you to do those the siege fights, because you will knock them all out within an hour, and then you can move all your best gear around for free and get it back on your champions. And like you say, this is something we said when they first introduced these tokens. 1 hour isn't enough for you to be doing soul cross. If you want to do 8 soul cross stages in a day
Yeah.
with extensive regearing, that token needs to be 2 or 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that 1 hour just puts you under so much pressure when you're like, I've popped the token, I must get everything done really fast, go, go, go. And you feel like you've got to have done a lot of the prep work, maybe
Yeah.
spent an hour planning all the regearing you're going to do for those stages. And then, it just adds this unnecessary bit of pressure that isn't fun to
Yeah.
to fight the clock.
Oh, 100%.
before you then have this huge silver cliff where if you've left your gear in the wrong place, you get absolutely punished for it. And at which point you probably end up having to use two
Yeah,
tokens
use another
back to
one.
back.
And
And it's just, I don't know.
how many have you used by accident? I think I'm up to two used by accident now. Um,
I think I've used two by accident. Yeah, one
yeah.
when we first got them, and then one the other day, like last week, where I just needed to move one piece of gear, and I think it was for like I have a gear swap piece on my RTAC between
Mhm.
doing Ice Column and Spider, and it's literally I just take the boots off. So that's it. It's not even a
Okay.
piece of swap. I remove one item, and I think I
100K silver,
accidentally
50K.
clicked the thing because it popped up.
Oh
And it's just
man.
like it's just 100k silver. I don't want you to offer me the free rear gear token
Uh,
for one item.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
stop it. And you can't turn it off. There's no way of turning it off by default that it never offers you it. It will offer
No,
it to you every day.
they said they're gonna fix it, but they haven't, and it's been a while now. It's just a that's a terrible it's a terrible quality of life reminder every single day. Basically, you have to watch out or be screwed. Um, it puts me in a bit of a panic. I'm like, oh, I've used this thing. Like, is there anyone I can re-gear? Can I make this not a waste? And then it's like, oh, do I want to spend an hour fretting over this and scrambling to find stuff? And I think the last time I was just like, you know what? Let's just imagine it's gone. Whatever. I don't care. I
Just
moved on.
take the L.
Take the L. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I was in the same spot as you where I didn't re-gear people for these. The rewards are really small, so I kind of feel like it's just sort of a fun thing. And I think these mana shrines are more when you're in that position, like you said, where there is kind of bad matchmaking and it's a bit of a stomp. Well, at least you can have some fun. I don't know if it's good game design, but you can have good fun in the mana shrines going, okay, their defense teams aren't that crazy. I can go in with my real B team or C team or even the D or E or F team for arena and like just have a bit of fun messing around. Like I said, maybe not great game design, but it's a little bit of fun at least. But yeah, what do you have any quick fixes like or broad changes that you think you could make to address some of those concerns about like yeah, is it just, going to be two clans destroying everything and nothing good's going to happen? Like what would you change with Siege if you could? Like I said, Eharbad, you're in charge for the next month. What should we do? Siege. Ah, help.
Oh, man, I think it's so hard.
Hmm.
And because I think the fundamental flaw with Siege is the same as the fundamental flaw with CVC and Hydra Clash. It's all down to the matchmaking.
Yeah.
And I think the overall arching way they do matchmaking is probably what needs to be rethought in a way that doesn't allow as much abuse of the matchmaking system as currently exists. Now, how you tweak that, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think that's the fundamental thing that needs some evolution over time. But to be brutally honest, I don't think they need to do that much to Siege right now. I
Yeah.
think that the concern for me is more that this has the bones of being an interesting game mode, and over time there will be tweaks that will reveal themselves that will need to be taken to really let it evolve and be more interesting. Maybe things like changing the win conditions to remove the draws or
Yeah.
I'd say right now, if they had to bug fix anything, it's that we're encouraged not to upgrade our strongholds.
Oh,
Like
yeah, that's
that's just
ridiculous, isn't
insanity.
it?
The whole way the repair thing works is just stupid. It's
Hmm.
you're just punishing people from trying to interact with the game mode you've created. So I think those are two obvious fixes, and then kind of see how it goes.
Mm.
But my concern is that Plarium have a very long and very pronounced track record of not changing things.
Yes.
And that's my biggest concern for the state of the game overall is that there's so much content in the game now. They don't really need to add that much more content. They just need to evolve and iterate some of the content they have and make some tweaks, make it feel fresh. But they're just steadfast against ever touching anything in the game once it's added.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I mean, I guess Hydra was a bit of an exception where they did come in. I mean, it was a few months, mind you, down the line, and they did improve it, which was good. But
And
then, yeah,
and just think with Hydra for a second. Like, what was the change? They allowed us to provoke
yeah, pretty
the
much.
decay.
Yeah, I think
Was
that.
there any actual other change? That was the only one I remember that was material.
Yeah,
I feel like they did two changes at that point,
they're.
but the big one was allowing provoke. And it's
Mhm.
like it changed the game mode completely. That one small change to allow a bit of agency in the player completely changed the game mode. So we're not saying like they have to go through all the game modes and just like completely rewrite them, but
Mhm.
just be a bit brave, make a few tweaks here and there.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard my theory that because I don't know if you remember, they did say a while ago that they were going to update Tag Arena and actually do something to improve that. And obviously they never did. I actually think that they were looking into how to improve Tag Arena and that grew into Siege. They took like the, Cursed City sort of posts idea, combined it with Tag Arena, and bam, here you go. They've got ends up with Siege basically. I think that's what happened, and
Yeah, I
that
mean, like you say,
you
it's
know,
kind of is the love child, isn't it? It's the
yeah,
love
yeah.
child of Tag Team and Curse City,
Mm.
two of the most loved game modes in the game. Have
Yeah,
spawned
right.
Siege. So, I mean,
Oh dear.
that's yeah, it's both good and bad. But that actually segues into a nice additional point. And I think I did see the video where you mentioned this. Is that Live Arena is like new Classic Arena, and Siege is like new Tag Team.
Yeah.
And that's all good and well. And actually, I would say I'm not a big Live Arena fan, but it is a hell of a lot better than Classic Arena is for
Yeah.
98% of the player base or 99% of the player base, anyone who isn't trying to do plat, basically. But the problem is, those other game modes still exist in the game. You're
They
still
do,
forced to do them every day. And this is, again, the problem that I was kind of saying is that there's enough content in the game, but
hmm
they need to like play with some of the old content. You know, we finished our great halls, right?
Yeah,
Just kill classic arena at that point and let us focus on live arena.
that's true.
Like you
Yeah.
have to at some point. You can't just add content to a game. At some point, you have to say that old content is irrelevant to some of the player base. Don't delete the content because I think it's still important for new player experience to enjoy the old content. But for
hmm
those people who have played 2, 3, 4, I think some people have even played 5 years now, do we still have to keep doing the old content that you've basically said is now irrelevant, but you still make us do it anyway? Like,
Yeah, some of it is min maxing. Is like you could just not really do classic arena. I guess you need it for some of the forge stuff, but if you got enough, I think a lot of people don't bother. Or like
you
again,
still have
like
to do
Doom
it for your
Tower. I
quests.
think a lot of people don't bother once they've collected the stuff. Apart from lethal, they'll do lethal and ignore the other rotations. But it does feel bad as well. It's like you are playing inefficiently. You're giving up free rewards for stuff that doesn't really cost you anything to do it. But I think the reality is some people do, but the game isn't designed. Like yeah, they added in what to make classic more. I think it's fine, but they did add in like these chests. They kind of suck. It doesn't really matter, but they added them in. Uh, yeah. What? So you would say what content would you say? Okay, you don't classic arena. Anything else? I'd say potion keeps. I hate those things. Just a waste of time. You could delete those. Really. Anything else that you'd say don't need it?
Ocean keeps are trash.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Let's do a fight for fun here. Wow. They don't even have super rates
I,
for these things, which is crazy.
I don't think you necessarily need to delete them because they never force you to interact with them, right? Other
Right.
than occasionally if you need to ascend someone, we do get those pots elsewhere. They've put a lot of them in Curse City.
Mm-hmm.
So they do give you other ways of getting it. The problem with, say, Classic Arena is it's really the only reliable source of Magisteel. We
Yes.
still get area bonus coming through it in terms of base stats that we use elsewhere in the game, and they still have missions against it, daily quests and advanced quests and stuff. So they force you to do it, whether you like it or not. They never force you to do the potion keeps. So it's kind of it's fine to keep the keeps as they are
Hmm.
No
Hmm.
one really interacts with them, but they're also not a hindrance. But it's like, and it kind of brings it in is dungeons. Gear is worthless in all the dungeons.
Yeah, it really has become
Like,
that way, hasn't it? It's kind of
and
bad.
yet they force us to
Yeah.
grind them like
Hmm. Hmm.
5 days a week. You're grinding dungeons for some tournament. The other
Yeah.
2 days, you're grinding campaign. And it's like, please let me stop this grind.
Very true. It's something I mentioned to you actually at the start of this. Like, I came in and I just said, enough is enough. And I still have a couple of kind of outdated sets here, but I sold a whole bunch of these. There's a bunch of sets near the top here. I just went in and I deleted them. And yeah, I'm only keeping the more useful ones now. Like, I might even just sell Retaliation. I don't ever really use it, but there, yeah, as you said, there's a dungeon. Well, I mean, we maybe come back to the dungeons when we talk about the new dungeon stuff, but there's 100% a problem where, as you said, tournaments, dungeon divers, fusions, you constantly have to farm this stuff, and so much of it is totally useless. We do have a new dungeon, looks like coming. Let's do Curse City first, and we had that on the list first. We'll come back to the dungeons. Um, Curse City. This is new content. Plenty of rewards in here that is very good. In fact, Merciless gear set, for instance, makes, well, farming for Savage, still okay, but nowhere near as important as it was before. Same thing, sort of, Hydra as well combines with this. Siege with the new Feral set combines with it as well. These sort of time limited pieces of gear that are just better. First City's definitely a big part of that. It's got good rewards, definitely good rewards in there. Like, I mean, free Eternal Soulstone from this boss, for instance. But I would say, I think you found the same thing. Curse City, very little interest from viewers in Curse City. I got decent views at the start, but then really fell off. I feel like if we were to do a poll of people, I haven't done one recently. I think very few players actually fully complete it. I mean, you can see I know you've done it. I've not done it. I've not bothered really to fully complete Soul Cross or anything like that regularly. I think a lot of people simply don't like Curse City. It's just not very popular. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? What's your experience been of Curse
Well,
City?
I think it's still the exact same issue that I said about a week after they released it, and that's that the difficulty curve is too steep. So
Yeah.
at least half of it is so trivially easy that there is no content or interest around it. Because, you're not going to put any content on how to beat Cobble Market.
Yeah.
Literally just walk in with one 6-star that's half built and you'll beat it even on hard. So there's no tactic involved in beating half of it, at least. There's maybe one or two stages in Dead Rise or Plague Home that might cause some mid-game accounts problems. But for an end-game account, those 3 zones are getting cleared without any thought.
Yeah.
Like, you just throw any champions in, pretty much. It doesn't matter. So, what can you do with that? If things are too easy, it's going to be boring. Like, what's there? No one's going to talk about, strategize. How should I beat this, etc. And then
Yeah.
you have the other extreme, which is Soul Cross and to a certain extent Amius himself,
Yeah, I would say
where
definitely him. 100%.
where it's like people are either completely roster blocked, have absolutely no hope, or or it's just like so punishingly painful that people don't want to deal with it. And it's like that isn't successful content. If you look at Clan Boss, Hydra, Doom Tower,
Hmm.
there's clear progression. You always feel like you're getting, you find your peak and then you try and beat it next time and next time, and you're always effectively playing against yourself. And you don't get that in Curse City. There's not this. I don't like to use the word linear progression, but progressive advancement.
Hmm.
Like, you don't get that. You're either absolutely steamrolling it, and then you get to the point where it's hard, and then you look at your roster, and do you have 10 hours of tinkering time available? And if you say I don't have the roster or I don't have the time, then it's worthless. It's not worth pushing,
Yeah.
because if you don't get the full clear, there's nothing to shoot for. At least in Doom Tower, every 10 levels there was like an extra prize. By beating that boss, you usually got some meaningful reward. And you don't quite have that in Cursed City.
Hmm.
There aren't kind of milestone rewards other than say that Fire Knight stage in Soul Cross where you get an eternal soul stone or the equivalent of in coins.
Hmm.
That's really kind of the only one you're shooting for. And you're maybe trying to shoot to clear Amius because you'll get a good chunk of gear. Those are kind of objectively, you look in, those are your two target stages. And you go, can I do them? If yes, I'll put the work in to at least get to there. If no, it's not really worth my time to care about it too much. I'll do a bit if I can, but it's not going to make much difference.
Yeah, that's you've caught me. I don't know if you saw that. Valkanen just decided kind of one shot Sifi. Thanks, Valkanen. Pleasure to have you on the team there, buddy. But yeah, I'm in that spot where I try to do Amius every rotation because you do get such a big chunk of gear. Um, I don't know. Do you feel like people maybe underestimate the gear for Cursed City, like just how it can add up from doing the bosses? Like, I don't know. Like for me, not bothering to do some of, well, let's say half of Soul Cross, I'm clearly losing out on a few bosses and a few drops of Merciless, which is the best damage set in the game. Um,
Yeah,
is that
yes
putting
and
me
no.
further behind than I think, or?
Um, I think the problem is twofold. One, there's too much 5-star gear.
Oh
Like I
yes.
full clear everything and I still don't. I've only really got one person built in Merciless, maybe two. Even though I've full cleared all of it several times, I haven't been that lucky on the drops, and I only really have one good build in Merciless after however many months. So
That's crazy, isn't it?
make of that what you will. Um, and I think Supersonic isn't that interesting as a set.
Yeah, it's a bit meh. I think it could be quite powerful, but it's not super interesting to put it bluntly, for sure.
It's like Protection and Stone Skin are both in a really good spot. Protection started off a bit weak, but once they released the 9-piece version, it
Hmm.
really ramped up in terms of power.
Yes.
And I feel like, Merciless clearly is super powerful. So you've got like three really good 9-piece sets right there. And I do think Supersonic actually just needs a little bit of a buff to make it a little bit more interesting. It's a bit one-dimensional as a set.
Yeah.
It's like you're either trying to go really fast or you're trying to go really fast. That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. Whereas Protection, you can go really fast, you can protect your buffs, it can be a damage boost for the rest of your team. So there's like a lot of different champions that you could use protection on for different purposes and in different game modes.
Hmm.
It's great for Hydra, it's great for Arena in certain niche uses. Like there's clearly viability. And then it works as a broken set as well, purely because of the stat gain. It gives you speed, it gives you resistance, this kind of stuff. So it
True.
works quite well as a filler. Stone Skin, everyone knows it's the arena set, and now that you
Yeah.
can do Stone Skin plus lethal, etc., etc. So it's still a good set, and it's actually quite a nice filler set as well. Again, because of the resistance
I
that
actually think
you
Stone
can
Skin is
pick
so
up.
good for Arena that it kind of makes other potential Arena sets bad. Like,
Yeah,
four piece is so
I'd
strong.
agree. I mean, it's more that it's actually mandatory
Yeah,
for
pretty
arena.
much.
It's not even just that it's so strong. It's like if you don't put it on, you're disadvantaging yourself so much,
Yep.
particularly if you're fighting against someone like an
Armands.
Armans.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
that was us for for Siege last time. It was like almost every defense. I mean, everyone's putting in two defenses, and almost everyone has Armands. Shock horror. Every second defense is an Armands, and you're going like, okay, we just need everyone in Stone Skin because that counters the Armands. It's not an option. Like if even one or two people are not in Stone Skin, that guy he's stealing the turn meter. He's popping off. It's pretty bad time. Uh,
yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah.
And some people even have two Armans, and then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it gets even worse. And I mean, that's actually one of the other problems with siege mode, to be honest, to a certain degree,
Hmm.
is it's just basically massively favoring having duplicates of the best champions. So since Siege had started, I haven't used them in Siege yet because I only just did it recently. But I have now built out my dupe Tormin and my dupe Harima. Neither of
Oh
which
yeah.
did I have any intent of ever building. But now they're both so strong to have as an option within Siege that I'd be
Right.
stupid not to.
I tell you the scariest defense that we fought on Siege. We did manage to beat it, but it was the enemy team had a Banner Lords only defense, and you could probably guess what it was, but it was Marishka, double Taris, and an Acelin.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, how do you Banner Lords only? Like, what? How do you even beat that? What can you even do? But luckily, we did have one clan member, and you can probably guess what he
Who
used to
had
beat it. It was
Excellent double Taras and
yeah,
Marishka.
that's exactly it. It was like, okay, the
Exactly.
only way to beat this is with the exact same team. It was absolutely absurd. And then he did manage to win. I think it was difficult, but he got there. But it's crazy. Or then another defense I've shown off is one of my clan members has double Armans with Alaz and with the faction unity guy. And again, it's like, how do normal players come in? How do you get past a double Armans Alaz even? That's just unbelievably hard. They seem to be. We're kind of jumping back to Siege a bit. Here we go on our version. Those seem to be the strongest types of posts from what I've seen. Are the faction specific ones. We've also had like a guy with a lizard man. Like if you've got a Teox, like yeah, well, now like Teox Lazarius, bam, there's your lizard man post right there. Unless you've got those champions, the other lizards are so much weaker. You're kind of screwed. Um, Probably not true
And to
for
be
every
fair, it's an
faction, but
extension of what we saw in Curse City, where
yeah,
when they had really narrow filters, like the
yeah.
idea of the conditions makes it interesting because you have to be creative and use different champions. The problem is when the conditions get too restrictive, it basically just says, "Do you have champion X? If yes, please proceed. If no, get your credit card out because you're not going to pass this until you get that one champion that unlocks the stage."
Yes, yeah.
And when you're going PvP, you're basically just magnifying that. So you're saying if it's a single faction, if you have these 3 or maybe 4 champions, okay, you can actually participate in this content. If you don't, you just give up. Like this content's not for you. And again, like it just doesn't feel like good game design.
Mm, yeah, true. It's rough. It's rough. So for Curse City, we're doing some of it here. Like, I think this is a fairly rough stage, super limited. You would say probably maybe upping some of the difficulty of the earlier waves might be good. I feel like it's always hard. It's a hard sell because I know for us we find these. Well, I'm actually exit out of this fight so we can talk about the general thing. I know what you're
Well, I'd
saying.
say
Yeah.
it's quite straightforward. You've got 2 difficulty modes,
Yeah.
like you do in Doom Tower. The
Hmm.
problem is normal mode in Curse City, the rewards are so bad,
They are terrible, aren't they?
and Amius is so hard
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
that it's like people actually do normal Doom Tower. And I remember when I was coming through the game, I enjoyed doing normal Doom Tower when I couldn't do hard. It still
Yes.
felt like an achievement. It still felt worthwhile. Normal Curse City doesn't feel worthwhile.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the problem. So you've got a hard mode that is too easy for the majority of the stages, a normal mode that's completely irrelevant with the actual end boss being so overtuned that anyone who is at the stage that they can actually beat normal Amius shouldn't even be doing normal mode at all.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like it's not been well thought out. And that's
No.
that same kind of thing that we talked about with Hydra. You only need to do a small tweak. So maybe normal mode Amius doesn't change form. That's it.
Yeah.
Bang.
Oh, that'd make it so much
You only
better.
have to deal with form 1 in normal mode.
Hmm.
You've made it much easier. Everyone else can do it. Give the full clear, that normal cursed chest,
Oh,
and the beating of Amius. Give those rewards a bit of a boost because they're both pathetic.
it's shockingly bad, this chess, isn't it?
like,
It's so
like
bad.
they're so bad, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
Um, so you fix normal that way. Now anyone who's early to mid game has a part of Curse City to play around in
Hmm.
that actually feels valuable. They're able to get some of the gear sets. Maybe you need to up some of the drops on the gear sets. I can't remember exactly what they give you. There shouldn't be any rare gear. It should just be giving you epic and legendary 5 star, and maybe some epic 6 star as well. And just kind of like give people a good boost on the gear. You don't have to give them all the top gear. And then on the hard side, make the first 3 zones harder
Hmm.
so they actually feel like you're having to do something
Yeah.
or think about it a bit. Um, Again, I think Amius needs a bit of a tweak. I think Amius is overtuned. The whole reviving himself if you kill him in the wrong form, I think, is just
Yeah, that's just
stupid.
annoying, isn't it?
It's just annoying. Like,
Yeah.
it's not serving a purpose.
What makes it worse is that it's bugged, and half the time it doesn't even display correctly either. The background is supposed to change, which number one isn't very clear. I think he could have an actual form swap like Mythicals do.
Well, exactly. Every other mythical that has
Yeah.
2 forms is
Yeah.
clearly visually different, except for Amius, who's like, haha,
Yeah.
I play the game my own way. I make the rules here, not you. So, like, there's small changes. If you just got rid of the the revive, I think would be a huge one.
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
think there's the choreographing of the skill set is too precise. You have to do all the right actions to make sure that he uses the skills in the order that you want him to.
Yeah. Quite
And I
annoying.
think that's kind of unnecessary. He should just use the skills in the order that he's designed to, effectively. So A3, A2, A1, and just
Yeah.
do that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like pretty much every other boss in the game does. They
Yeah.
do their choreographed moves. This whole, oh, I need to make sure I have the decrease attack on him before he switches form so he opens with the stun and then I can get the heal reduction on in time for him to do that. And you're just like you're juggling all of these things. Oh, I got to make sure I have a buff before he switches to form 2 so he actually does the buff strip and then puts me to sleep so he doesn't just single target nuke me. That's just a pain. And I think if you could deal with that, then the fact that his A1 can get into this cycle where he just kills your entire team and you never take a turn would at least be minimized. I think that is a problem, but you could say, well, that's what makes the boss hard.
Hmm.
And because he's only going to do that on the hard mode, not the normal mode, maybe that's fine at that point.
Yeah. It's a tough one for sure. I mean, a part of the problem as well is, like you said, it's the sort of abandoned content because we know that they have thought about improving this mode, but it seems like they just put it on the back burner. Like, I believe they did have a bunch of changes sort of ready to go. At least that's what they were sort of indicating. And then they just sort of abandoned them, basically, because they said, I think because they said, well, it seems like people just aren't clearing the mode, that they're finding it too. So why add new stuff? It's like, don't abandon it entirely. Come back to the mode and try to fix it. Make it more accessible if people aren't actually able to
Exactly, but
do it.
like, instead of asking yourself why aren't people clearing it and
Yeah.
going, maybe we need to tweak these things to encourage people to clear it, it's like, oh, people aren't clearing it because they don't like it. Let's just work on something else instead. It's like people don't like it because you've not created a compelling argument for them to do it, and it's not fun in its current form. So change that.
Hmm.
I don't. It makes no sense to me. This idea that just give up, and start again.
Yeah. Oh
Here,
man.
play with this new shiny siege mode. Oh, here, play with this new shiny dungeon. Distract you from the other things. But yeah, I, I think the frustration is that they don't have a track record of fixing things,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it makes it hard as a player to have confidence or faith that things will improve in the future when we never see it.
Right. Yeah. That's true. That is true. Hmm. It's rough. I do like your idea a lot. So I'm kind of half focusing on actually trying to beat the stupid boss. We're
Gotta
almost
make sure you
there.
kill him in the right mode.
This is the easy one as well. This is where you can use the unremovable heal reduction. You can use CP Rotus. This is the fun rotation. um, but yeah, and Rotus will block revive, so we'll get
I was
there.
going to say, does Rotus's block revive work?
I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah. So I mean, it's just
I
that easy,
don't
guys.
have
Just use
Rotus
your
or Siphy, so
use your
you know.
CP Rotus. It's that easy, and the boss is dead. um, can he extra turn? There we go. Can he do it? I'm not sure if he'll actually have enough damage. Let's slower him a bit more. Um, yeah. So Curse City, not super popular. I'd actually be curious. Let us know in the comments, anyone. Do you actually complete this game mode, or is this something that you kind of ignore or only do a little bit? I'm curious what people think. Very curious what people think. Is this enough? Oh. Um, yeah. But let's talk about, speaking of, they don't necessarily need to add new content. Let's talk about some new content then that might be coming, Airbad. Jumping over to that segue, new dungeon looks like it is coming. Um, and looks like it might be themed around Norse mythology and all of that. What was your initial thoughts on seeing that? Hyped, not hyped? How are we feeling about that?
I guess intrigued
Mm-hmm.
as to what it could be, but also worried. Worried on two fronts. One, uh, is it going to be a good addition for the game? And if they don't hit the mark, are they ever going to fix it? Kind of
Right,
thing. And
right.
that's my worry. It's not what comes, but it's like if it doesn't come perfect, it's never going to get fixed. And that's kind of every time they release stuff now, you're like worried about it.
Harsh. Let's go. Remnant summon. Bless me with your mythical luck. Didn't work, dude. What happened? You're the king for pulling mythicals from that. Bad now. Uh, yeah, yeah, true. Like, will it be good? Will it not? Will they fix it? Well, no. As you said, they're very slow to change anything. What do you think this is going to be? I mean, it's certainly an interesting spot for it on the map. It looks like the new dungeon is coming in this area right here. It's both close to the traditional gear dungeons, but it's also pretty much beside the Minotaur's Labyrinth. Uh,
Exactly. So in my Discord, and actually I spoke to you about it
mm,
shortly after as well. I proposed that it was going to be some extension to masteries. So either extend the mastery tree itself and
hmm
give you tier 7, 8, 9, something like that, or like you have in some other games, you have another way of customizing your champion. So it'd be another distinct set of masteries, but not the same as masteries, but where you
Yeah.
have some option, some ascendancy class type thing. I think in Diablo and Path of Exile, they have that kind of concept.
Yes.
So I personally think that's probably the most likely because masteries are old. They haven't had a power
Ever?
surge
Yeah.
for a while
No.
or ever,
Yeah.
really. You could say that blessings are a little bit like an extra mastery where we have a little bit of an extra option.
hmm
Um, and I think they were initially, but then they just became a massive stat block. They kept buffing the stats to make them more and more mandatory to have blessings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think the idea of having a Minotaur's 2
hmm
works
hmm
well in respect of we now have, 100, 200 champions built for all the content that we're having to do. And if they make us farm masteries effectively or something equivalent on all of them again,
hmm
even if you say that's 500 or 600 gems per champion,
That's a lot.
that's a lot of investment.
A lot. That's an awful lot.
We're going to be at that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they to use the phrase that we've heard before, they are in profit mode. And if
Right.
they added that, that would make them money because
Yes.
all the end game players are going to invest and do it because it's a guaranteed power increase. There's no RNG associated with it. It's a
hmm
one-off cost. It will bring in money. And I think it's probably the one thing they could add in the game that wouldn't break the rest of the game. So it's probably like the best of a bad group of options that it could be.
Yeah. Oh, it's a spicy one. I mean, I saw a comment, one commenter, I didn't catch their name, I'm afraid. I should have noted it down, but they put a comment on the video saying it could be like a dungeon that drops rune stones, right? If it's sort of Nordic themed, it could drop rune stones, and you could like whatever engrave runes onto like your gear for benefits, or as you said, it could be some sort of new system instead of like blessings and mastery, some sort of rune stone system, which is like you said, another form of masteries effectively. And I thought that was actually quite a clever idea that it could be directly tied into this whole Nordic thing. I was like, okay, okay, you're
Yeah,
selling me on
and
this,
I think
Mr. Commenter.
it could be linked to the Nordic thing where, you know, we
Mm,
fought the Minotaur,
yeah,
which I believe is a mythical
it is.
creature
Yes.
from that similar
Greek, isn't it?
region of mythology. Like it
Yeah.
is Greek mythology, isn't it? The Minotaur.
Yes, yeah. The
Um,
labyrinth and all that.
so it's kind of thematically linked, even if it's a different region of Europe.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's thematically linked, and it's like you go up against you fight this pinnacle fight, and you get a reward. So we got scrolls from Minotaur. We could get runes, like you say, from
Mm,
this one, and you know you then use those runes to empower your champion. I think the problem with empowering the gear is we already had gear
Ascension.
ascendancy.
Yeah, kind of
Like
recently as
they
well.
just did that.
Yeah.
I don't feel like this is going to be an upgrade on gear you already have, because that's just doubling down on a mechanic that people are still interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
It yeah, just kind of I don't think it will be that.
Yeah.
If it is, I think that's a mistake
Yeah.
because people already don't have fully ascended gear necessarily. That we've still never had Shogun as a tournament. You know, they haven't really done enough to encourage people to do that game mode as it stands.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
and I think doing another of the exact same mechanic would be a bit weird. Now, like you said, maybe the rune could give it, instead of stats, maybe it will give it something else. But then I think inserting that to the champion rather than the gear would make more sense if it has another effect that isn't just stats. That's more of a champion thing.
Yeah.
It could be a way of empowering your skills, maybe.
Oh. Ooh. That's
So
spicy.
maybe the rune goes in to the skill itself. You
Mm-hmm.
empower
I
a
could see
certain
that.
skill.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be the approach.
That could be
But
quite
I
cool.
do think it will be some kind of empowerment to the champion that isn't stat based, basically.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I do agree. I think that an idea of like again sort of like enchanting, as in World of Warcraft, like enchanting an extra effect or stats on individual pieces of gear, uh, could be. I actually think that's something that's quite cool, but definitely isn't due yet. I could definitely see them doing that, but I think it should be in the future because, as you said, they just nerfed Sand Devil on Shogun, and there aren't really Shogun tournaments. I think most of us are still not in a position. I've got some of my best champions with their stuff fully ascended, but most champions aren't, or only partially, if at all. So yeah. One thing I said when we were chatting about this as well, I could totally see this tying into the soul system, where if I come down to like a lower leveled character, okay, let's say Scarred, for example, with masteries, the different tiers are locked behind ascending them with normal ascension. I could absolutely see like a new mastery system, like a rune system, so to say,
Absolutely.
tied into souls. So like,
Absolutely.
you got a 6-star soul, great, you can unlock the full thing. But oh, you only got a 2-star soul. You can do like the first 2 tiers of runestones to get those benefits, but you gotta get that soul if you want more. Like that seems like, oh man, I almost feel like Plarium is communicating to me telepathically when I'm thinking that, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I think that's 100% right. I jokingly said in my Discord that it would only be accessible to 6-star awakened champions, kind of a, like, half joking, half like
yeah.
foreboding. But I
Uh,
think what you're saying, where you could only unlock stages of the additional system as you go up, would
mhm.
make sense because I hazard a guess that soul stones and prisms and primal shards are probably their three biggest money makers at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, if you're looking to
I
whale
would
out, like,
say
there's no question.
absolutely
Yeah,
those are the main three.
yeah.
And probably soul stones actually make them more than the rest.
You think? Ooh, maybe, maybe.
It's just so necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not find yourself when you get a new champion, you're like, oh, I don't have a decent soul.
Yeah. Oh,
That
100%.
champion's irrelevant.
100%.
until
Yeah.
I get a soul for this champion, I'm basically not going to be using him anywhere. Or at least I'm not using this champion in arena because he's just too underpowered versus
Oh,
the other
yeah.
champions. So
Exactly. I've
it's
got a
one
bunch
of my
of.
issues with Carnage is like
Yeah.
he's until I get a 5-star soul for him and get that extra accuracy, crit damage, and all the rest of it.
Can't really use
It's
them.
hard to build him strong enough to make up for his weaknesses and shortcomings.
Yep. I
So
100% agree. Yeah, I've been in that spot many times. I'm like, oh yeah, that champion would be cool to build up, but never mind. They've got no soul. Like they're especially damage dealers. It's just crippling. Like if you don't have a soul, like my Torment, I'm like, I'd love to upgrade his gear, but being a 2-star soul, like missing that defense and crit damage, and for Torment as well, the accuracy, it's like, compared to my, my 4-star blessing people, it's like, it feels really bad. Doesn't feel
exactly,
good.
you just lose out on so much, and that's kind
Mm,
of what I was saying. Maybe it makes them the most because if you're a
yeah.
big, like a reasonably big spender, and say you've got the majority of the big champions,
Yeah.
you need their souls. And if you're chasing specific mythical 5 and 6-star souls,
Yeah.
you're probably spending quite a lot of money on soul stones.
Yeah. That's actually
And
it's a really good point. I'd love to see the breakdown, the plowing breakdown of income from different
we'll never
things.
see it, but
No.
I would hazard a guess that that is probably the case,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's why they've repeatedly doubled down on making blessings mandatory.
Hmm.
They buffed the stats like twice. They nerf/buffed polymorph
Yeah. Yeah.
at the 6-star ascension. Please get the 6-star soul. That's where you want it.
Yeah.
That's why Crushing Rend is so unbelievably broken at 6-star, but so trash before.
Right.
You know.
A bunch of them are like that. They only really work at 6-star. Yeah. It's it's wonky. No, it's a good point. Like I do feel like at least with so much time gone by that the souls are in it. I feel like they're in a bit of a better spot overall, and I definitely think the double events for like whatever slightly boosting the drop chances. I mean, it should be just 5 and 6-star or something, but those events have made soul stones I think more fun as well. I do think we're in a better place with souls overall, but yeah, like you said, it's a I don't know. I also feel like it's taken a really long time to actually build up anything. Like, how long has it been out now? Maybe 2 years? Is it that long with Souls? Or
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been out a very long time, and it is
Mm,
definitely in a much better state than it was.
yeah, but
But
it took ages.
realistically, and it kind of all this stuff leads into why I consider myself in the off ramp.
Mm,
It's like I look at my roster, which I've got a lot of very good champions, some pretty good gear, and like how many months or years more would I need to play to actually progress from where I am in
right.
an interesting way?
Yeah.
Like specific souls are so hard to get. The wish list, I know it works for some people. It doesn't work for me.
It's
There's
pretty hit
no
or miss,
mercy
yeah.
on it, and I just never hit it. I've hit it once since they upped the wish list. I think it was from 2x to 8x.
Yeah.
I've hit a legendary on my wish list once
Yeah.
in
They,
that
they, they should
entire
definitely
time.
up it more. 100%.
But I don't think that actually they should up it more. I think there should
Oh.
just be a mercy associated with it.
Oh,
So in the
okay.
same way
Yeah.
that you get
Yeah.
the progressive chance on you get those progressive events.
Yeah.
Effectively, you got 3 slots, so you really have a 24x is where you're starting.
Hmm.
And I think overall you should have a mercy associated. So if you pull say 10 or 20 legendaries, by your 20th, one of them should be one of those 3,
Yeah.
and then your
Yeah.
mercy resets,
Yeah. And every
and then
time
you
you
can
miss it,
rotate
it
that
ups
one
the
out.
chance.
But it's
Yeah.
just like you shouldn't be pulling 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 legendary souls and not hitting wishlist ever.
Hmm.
Like it's the same issue with prism shards. Like it just feels bad when there's no mercy. And how many legendaries have you got again, by the way, nubkeks, from your prism shards?
Oh, legendaries and prisms? I think I've got like 50. So many. No, I've got none. No, and I went in and I
Exactly.
spent, I think, $100 for videos on them and got nothing. I mean, it's.
Because
I
it's
want
the
to
lack
say
of
as
mercy,
well.
right?
Sorry. Oh,
It's the lack of mercy.
yeah, yeah. Like now we do know they are going to add in Mercy to Prisms, which is nice. But I mean, as some of my commenters actually said as well, I was kind of hoping it would be something that would carry over between events. Some commenters are concerned, again, it's the plarium of implementing something badly, that it would be Mercy system within a specific summon, within a specific summon pool,
Unfortunately, I
and
think
it
it
would
will be
reset.
within,
Yeah.
and it will
Oh, that's
reset.
terrible, dude. It's literally
and
only
and
for
you can't
spenders.
save them up. It's the whole Prism system's been designed for
From
spending.
Oh, 100%.
They learned from all the pitfalls of the regular shards.
Yeah.
I think they probably saw too many of my videos where I hoard the standard shards, and
Yeah.
they're like, "How do we stop someone from hoarding enough prism shards that they can actually get something they want?"
Hmm.
Okay, we'll just summon them all for them.
Yeah,
There's
true.
no way you're saving now. We're auto summoning.
I mean, the potential to spend, again, we touched on it, the primals, prisms, and soul stones. I remember the IPR guys are talking about, I think they've got like a new Kraken in their clan. I think he's only been playing about a year, but the champions you can get, like, by just going crazy with money on these events, like, you can catch up to like Kraken's been playing for years, because as we said, a lot of the gear is just irrelevant. That's not helping you. The older champions are power crept. Like, getting super powerful new champions from prisms, from primals, getting souls for them, and then with those champions being able to get the good gear from like from Hydra and from Curse City, now from Siege, very quickly it adds up, and you can
Oh,
be an
absolutely.
uber
I
kraken.
mean,
Like, the
let's be
potential.
honest. We are actually playing Raid Shadow Legends 2.
Yeah, yeah.
They just never told us it was a new game.
Mm,
But
mm,
all the gear has been replaced in the last 12 months.
yeah.
None of the old gear. You can say lethal counts a bit, but it doesn't really in the long run.
Mm,
Very much. Maybe lethal hangs on, but every dungeon gear is irrelevant. Pretty much all the old champions ultimately are irrelevant. Um, if you pull all the mythicals and you get farm all the Curse City, Hydra, and the new gear set from Siege,
mm-hmm.
you're done. And you ascend all your gear. All, like, bear in mind all of the time we spent, all those glyphs we invested in gear that's now irrelevant.
Yeah,
That
that's
doesn't
true.
like it used to be. Oh, you could never catch up because they've got all of these increments that are going to take you so long to ever get there.
Yeah,
But they've reset all of that because they've made all the gear sets irrelevant. We now are farming for glyphs just as aggressively as we were 4 years ago, because I now need to glyph a whole new 500 new pieces of gear instead of the 500 old ones. Yeah, the game's reset. Even the
yeah.
legendaries, the really good ones now, are pretty much all ones that have been released in the last 12 months.
Yeah, like let me see. Actually, for my Mithrala's been a little bit longer, but fairly new. These are all
But
new.
Mithrali, you can still pick up. If you go in and spend, you can pick her up pretty quickly. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
really
Oh,
matter
yeah,
too much.
100%. But yeah, I mean, just looking at my 12 champs I'm using to farm Tag Arena, like,
Yeah.
Lord Shazar, he's the most meme one in the team, and he's the oldest one, really. Like, Sifi is sort of hanging on. The rest of them are all quite new, and some of them are extremely new, like Armans, Ancora, and Narcy is probably my most powerful trio. They're all brand new.
They're all brand new.
Nuts.
And the important thing is, if you were a spender, you wouldn't be using half of those legendaries you still
Oh,
are.
yeah,
You'd be using the mythical versions
of
of them,
course. Of course. I
who are
actually
just
think it's
much stronger.
yeah, 100%. Within the game, like, you've been pretty darn lucky with your. We pulled my remnant summons earlier. You've got some mythicals from it, but I think a lot of players simply don't have a mythical, or only players been very lucky do. A lot of players have one or none still, I would say. I think that's a bummer. Like, for me, I have the luxury of being able to spend a bit, so I've spent a bit on primal shards. Excuse me. I probably will again in the future, because it's really fun to play around mythicals, but unless you are either very lucky, or you're in my position where you can spend some, or like some people where you can spend a lot, like mythicals are just totally out of reach, and I think that's a bit of a an issue as well with the game. Like the prism shards is like, okay, you can go whale mode and kraken mode, and that's its own thing. It's whatever, but mythicals being so scarce for a typical player, I think is kind of a problem. Especially, I'd put out a video earlier today that some of them are just really bad. And like if you wait as a
Yeah,
new player for months, like I got
it's
my
it's true.
mythical.
They're
Yeah.
probably too scarce and too powerful overall.
Yeah.
Like the difference is too large. But
Yeah.
it's always a tricky one because,
Mm,
if they're not that much more powerful, then what's the point of them?
yeah.
And if they're too common, then it's just like you just replace the entire game overnight. Everyone's just running all mythicals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it, I think the main issue in that regard is kind of what you're getting at, is that there's no, we haven't had a guaranteed way of getting a mythical, and other than Mikage, which
Oh,
neither
well,
of us
neither of us
have,
ever, do we?
for obvious reasons. So it's like it's guaranteed ish, but not
Yeah.
really.
Uh,
And yeah, and this all leads up to why I don't have a great kind of confidence in the direction of the game.
hmm
I just don't see what they can do to make the game in a spot that's really rewarding your time, because that at the end of the day is the biggest investment of all. And yeah, if you're not spending a huge amount of money, you're investing time.
hmm
And for a long time, the game was really rewarding for that time. Like there was enough balance of difficulty and strategy and decision making, and you could participate in everything and you could have your fun. And now too much of it, I think, is kind of PvP oriented.
Yeah.
So it's Hydra Clash. They've made Hydra a PvP mode.
Yeah.
We've got Siege, we've got Hydra Clash, we've got CVC still, and we've got Live Arena.
hmm
That's basically where you're spending most of your time. So if you're a PvE kind of player, the only thing you've got is Cursed City, and we've already discussed that.
It's not liked. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is there really left in the game that's interesting? Am I just gonna play for months or years, waiting till I maybe get a really game-changing mythical,
hmm
and then wait months or years until I maybe get a soul for them?
Yeah. Another problem with the mythicals actually as well is I was thinking about this earlier is the whole form swapping thing, which is sort of the fun thing, that only really gets used in arena as well in PvP, like in arena or siege. Like you do have mythicals that are obviously exceptional for other areas of the game, of course, but you tend to just run them in the one form there, you know? Um, the form swapping,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
why is form swapping so strong? It's because of lockout champions.
yeah, yeah,
That's the only reason you're relying on these form swaps in arena, really,
yeah.
is because when you get locked out, you just go, ha, let me bring out my second champion that isn't locked out. And that's kind of it. Like, if that didn't exist, you wouldn't really care so
Yeah,
much.
like some champions, Mikage is probably the best one where both, like certainly in arena, both forms are great. But then again, her second form outside of arena, not very useful really. But in arena, you do use both forms and you swap, but very few of them are
For
like that.
sure, but very very few are.
Yeah.
Most of them, it's you want to be in one form until you have to be in the other,
Yeah, yeah.
roughly.
Brawley here is a great example. Like when he goes into form two, you're like, oh god, why? That's just bad. That's not
Let's
good.
just put my 4 turn timer on. Wake me up when I'm allowed to switch back.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But let's jump to the. We'll talk about the whole gods and legends pivot maybe at the end. Do we? Seeing as we're on the topic there of you saying that you're not confident in the future direction of the game, how about we talk about your off ramp at the moment that you are ramping up? You think to probably quitting the game probably for
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think reality is once you quit, there's probably no coming back.
Mm,
Because it's very much an all or nothing game.
yeah.
And it's like, you're building up progression over such a long period of time. If you quit for, say, 6 to 12 months and then something comes back, you're probably not going to be in a position to interact with that new content because you haven't farmed whatever it is for the last 6 to 12 months to be in a position to interact with it.
Hmm.
I mean, there's that, but more along the lines of, what is there left for me to do? I've beaten the last 5 or 6 full rotations of Curse City. That's done. I've played a couple of sieges, won those. I've full cleared Doom Tower for 3 years or whatever it is. I've, beaten Demon Lord, beaten Hydra. The one thing I was trying to do is hit 1 billion on Nightmare Hydra, which I haven't quite done yet. Partly because I'm missing blessings on 4 champions
Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
Hydra team, which is painful. Um, what else is there? Live Arena. I've now got Quintus. I bothered to do enough fights, so
Hmm.
I've done 1,084 fights, 76% win rate. Got the
Nice.
Quintus. That's done. Um, yeah, there's nothing left in the game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What are they going to add? I could farm all the new gear set. Obviously, I don't have that. I could get more merciless and move more champions into that. I could hope to eventually be able to build 9 piece protection on some of the champions because RNG just won't give me the amulet I need for Androck. Ever. It just never drops.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the souls. It's like everything that I'd want to do now is contingent on RNG. It's getting the souls, it's getting those specific items to drop just to even let me use the set, let alone good ones. I don't even care if it's an attack amulet, like
Hmm. Hmm.
just give me the ability to interact with the mechanic. And I kind of feel like that's the direction we've gone in, where you can't even actually play the game as they intended the mode to be. And you have that with Siege. Like, we don't have enough florins and mana orbs to be interacting with the empowerment system, you know?
Yeah.
Because we've got a broken defense tower, we
Yeah.
can't
There's
repair it,
no point
and
yeah,
then we don't
fixing it.
have enough mana orbs to enact the empowerment. So it's like we're not even really engaging with the game mode because they haven't given us the resources to do it.
Yeah.
It's like you have to pay a penalty to even play the game. It's gone from pay to win to pay to play. Like
Yeah.
that kind
It's
of thing.
yeah. It's one of the things I
Yeah.
suppose, yeah, because they do constantly add sort of new stuff, but like if that new stuff isn't engaging to you, then yeah, you can easily see it reaching a point where you're like, well, I especially if you haven't, let's say, you haven't enjoyed the last couple of things. Like imagine players like you got a good bit out of Curse City. I don't know how much you enjoyed it, but you got a good bit out of it. But imagine, I'm sure there's lots of players in the comments that are going, well, I didn't like Curse City. Now there's Siege. I don't like Siege. A couple of updates in a row where you don't like stuff. I think you can easily run out of things to do. You're just treading the water, doing the same thing you've done before. It's sort of the problem of this game being so old, being around for so long. Um, yeah, it's
It's not
just
even just the
yeah.
age, it's the reluctance to change things. It's
Hmm.
like you're treading water and you're not waiting for them to go back and tweak Siege or tweak Curse City or give you a new rotation in Doom Tower. They're not adding any freshness to any of the existing game.
Yeah.
So it's like, what am I treading water for? Like, what are they going to add? Is it going to be the third clan boss?
Yeah.
Eventually, we'll get that. And I'll be like, how long am I going to have to play? Like whatever. Realistically, we're talking probably about 2 hours a day, right?
Yeah. At least.
It's a lot. That's a
At
lot of
least.
time.
I say easily play more than
It's
that.
it's it's at least 2 hours a day. No, like sometimes it's a bit more, but I would say for the most part, it's about 2 hours a day of active play,
Yeah.
and then there's a little bit more of kind of passive play,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is a lot. And it's like, how many more months am I going to have to do that before there's a compelling piece of content? and I just don't have the time. I've played, I've got 4.5 years out of the game pretty much.
Yeah.
Not quite. Like it's enough.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like, honestly, that's the way I sort of look at it as well. Is that like I might pick up a game on PlayStation and play it for a couple of weeks and be pretty darn happy. I'm a couple of weeks. That was a great game. To play a game for multiple years is kind of crazy, honestly. Um, yeah, I don't feel like bad about it. Whenever you reach the point when you're kind of sick of it, you're bored, it's time to move on. It's like, man, you got a lot out of it. Great, cool. Maybe we would have liked to get more, but that's the end. That's the end. That's sort of my philosophy on it, at least. Um,
Yeah, and I think there has to be kind of like a healthy approach to it, and I think that's the right way of looking at it. I do think I probably, if it was less than an hour a day, I'd probably carry on and I would do that treading water thing. But I
yeah,
feel like I've kind of been treading water for the last year anyway, waiting to see what was going to come. Like Curse City was meant to be good, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a fair crack. They might do some tweaks, but they're just not. They're just not
yeah.
tweaking things,
And you certainly like you've
and,
got
and
Carnage.
eventually you
Is
have to just be like, you know what, it's just not coming. And you did the mythical buff video today.
mm.
It's like, yeah, sure, they could make those champions interesting if they buffed them. But when, like, how long are you going to be waiting for that?
Yeah, 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 yeah. True. Yeah, it's something you said. If they lower the time per day, but like let's be real. I don't think that's something that is ever gonna come. I don't think they're ever gonna make it the game so that play for an hour a day and you're done. I just don't think the game is even designed like that. I think it really is designed to be a ginormous time sink. It is. So like that's never gonna change. That's one thing for sure. They might tweak some modes eventually, but they'll improve the time a little bit. But this is never gonna be a game that you can play casually on your commute to work and still feel like you can keep up with stuff. Like fusions are a shocking example of it. Like to do a fusion is
Oh yeah.
crazy, crazy. It's never gonna change. I don't think. Just a bit of a mess. um,
I didn't even do this last fusion. I just wanted a break. The
yeah,
champion wasn't that interesting at all, and it's been nice actually to being able to farm like Sand Devil, do some Minotaur, do all that kind of
yeah.
unglamorous stuff that ultimately, will improve your account.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like you say, during a fusion or a Titan event, you can make that 2 hours can become 4 quite easily.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, yeah. Um, well, like, so you're on the off ramp. What's your sort of timeline? Do you think, or like you quitting like today, or is it in a week? Are you gonna check out the new event, or what do you think about that sort of stuff?
So, I've been kind of thinking. So I'm going on a holiday mid of September.
Hmm.
That's my hard cut
Okay.
because I'm definitely going to stop playing when I go on holiday
Yeah. Yeah.
and for the 2 weeks, and why bother picking it up when I come back? So it will be sometime between now and middle of September. Um, I don't know. I feel like maybe I'll do one more siege, one more CVC, something like that.
Yeah. Hmm. Fair enough. It's not
But
far
probably not
away,
that much
really. It's
more.
only a month away.
Not really, because it's just like it's something I've been thinking about for more and more for the last couple of months. Initially, I was like, let me just do all of the different rotations of Curse City
Hmm.
to at least see what all the different permutations are. And then it was like, well, I might as well get Carnage. And I was like, oh, I haven't actually ever got Quintus. Let me get him as well. Actually, no, it was Carnage. Then I got Marius, and then I got Quintus. So, I basically chalked off those loose ends, if you will.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And it's like there aren't really any loose ends now, other than hitting that billion mark on Ultra Nightmare and in Nightmare Hydra.
Yeah.
There's no other loose ends. Like, okay, I never did a plat finish, but that's because I work, and it's always the resets on a Monday morning. Like, it's just not practical. But there's no other loose ends. Like, I've done everything in the game really that there is to do.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of think now is probably the right time. And I'll probably, like I said, peter out. I might see what I'd quite like to see what this dungeon's going to be, just curiosity. But
Yeah.
I'm also cognizant of maybe I should just exit before the news comes out, so, so I'm not tempted to be sucked back in.
uh, yeah.
Um,
I mean,
but yeah,
you can always like check it out for a while when it comes out. If you take a break from the game, you can come back. But I think it is one of those things as well. Like, because I do play some other gotcha games now, and like Honkai Star Rail, and I play Sandless Zone Zero as well. But I think those games are designed to be much more casual friendly, where there's a new patch, you do all the stuff in the new patch, big chunk of content, and then like it's just kind of low farming. You might not even play for a while, but then like, oh, another new patch came out, or maybe a couple of patches later, it's like, oh, I'll jump back in and see where the story's at and collect some new characters, and it's kind of fun. I feel like Raid is more designed to play lots every day forever, and as you said, once you quit, once you get out of that, it feels like it. I don't know. Is it? Would you ever come back in? I guess is a question. You could to check out new stuff, and maybe that's something you'll enjoy. But I don't know. I feel like the game
I
isn't
feel like once
designed.
I've detoxed,
Yeah,
I'll not want to get sucked back in. It would be nice to actually do other things. There's other games that I've been wanting to play that I haven't really got a chance to. Things like
yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3,
Oh yeah,
Tears
sweet.
of Kingdom, these kind of things. Like
Hmm.
this is what for the last 10 years, I'd basically play like one game a year and fully complete it. And that would be kind of all I'd dedicate to gaming.
Yeah.
Would be that amount. Would be, maybe we're talking about like 4 hours a week at most. And then since 2020 with Raid, it's spiraled in a big
There's quite a
way.
lot.
And I'd quite like to have my life back,
That's
if I'm
fair.
honest.
Well, let's segue then to just we'll keep this one fairly short. The final sort of point, though, I suppose, in terms of getting your life back, Fateless, new game coming out, Godforge, now revealed as well. Uh, a way for you to potentially, I've no idea how it's gonna go, like what the time commitment for that will be, but it's gonna be another gotcha game, in the raid genre, basically. I think a lot of people are very excited for it. Obviously, I work for HH Gaming, so I don't work for Fateless, but it's sort of tertiary. It's to the side of that, so privy to at least a minor bit of details about it and stuff. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Like, is that something that you're going to be looking to play when that comes out?
I think the reality is that when a game first comes out, that's the best time to play the game ever.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
always the most fun. Um, so I expect I will probably play it when it comes out. And I'd quite like to have enough of a break from gotcha games to not
Yeah.
kind of be excited when it does come out. And
Hmm.
I would hope that the time commitment isn't as bad as Raid is. But we have to remember when Raid first came out, the time commitment wasn't great, but it's not nearly as bad as it is now.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't play at the start, but I can imagine. Like when you see the old version of the game, there was so much less. Really, yeah, way less time required. It's nuts now for sure.
Yeah, hugely less time required, and I don't know. It felt more sustainable than
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
does now. And I think that, that when that game first comes out, that is when it's the most fun because it's fresh for everyone. Everything's new. So I do think I'll give it a go, and we'll kind of see how the game plays, what the strategies are. Yeah, I'm hopeful. I
Mm.
think that everyone involved in it has played Raid for a long time, pretty much,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think they know what works in a strategy game, and so it's really a case of can they execute it, you know? So they know the theory, can they put that into action?
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. Do you think is Plarium worried? Right, we've got Godforge is based on real world mythology stuff, and now suddenly in Raid we've got real world mythology with Norse stuff. I mean, they've done Sun Wukong before and that sort of thing. But is this a sneaky move by Raid? Is it just a coincidence? Is it sinister? What do we think about that one?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously, like you say, that they have a track record of having different influences in the game. So
Yes.
it's not completely out of keeping with the law of the game for Norse mythology to get introduced
Hmm.
in a bigger way. I mean, they have Valkyrie already, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, but it's suspicious. To be honest, it's like the timing. Like, if they really had this in the works, did they really have to pick like within a week of the name's reveal and like a week of isn't I think they're doing a playable demo and this week or next week as well,
In
right?
Gamescom, yeah, yeah, they are. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
so
they're
it's
going over
like
for that.
it feels like it's too coincidental to be just a coincidence.
I think that part is definitely. I think that is coincidence. Like they've like this is not something you just whip out like an event in game and that sort of stuff is in development for ages. And yeah, I think that's more coincidence. I do think it's possible though that I think Godforge revealed obviously not the name, but that the IP was going to be based on sort of real world stuff. I think they did reveal that a good few months ago. I think it was like around
Yeah,
Christmas.
they revealed that a long enough time ago that
So that's
they
possible.
Plarium could have had it in the works and development since then,
Yeah,
and
I
it
think
would
that's
be
possible. I don't know if
finished
it
by
did,
about
but
now.
yeah.
But bear in mind, we also generally think that Plarium have stuff ready to go before they actually release it. So they kind of
100%.
like
Yeah.
sit on things a while.
Yeah.
So both things can be true. They
Yep.
can have started development work on this 3-4 months ago, either before Fateless announced the style of the game, or after as a kind of a cautious, a defensive response, shall we say, to like
Hmm.
fend off a potential encroachment. Um, and they could also have decided that this was a good opportunity to slot it in, and it might be because they've done siege mode, which I kind of feel like they rushed siege mode. To be honest, I feel like it wasn't really ready. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
that they had a slot in the calendar that they kind of want to release something now, and then probably the next thing will be like Christmas. So this
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
probably the right slot. But the actual exact timing does feel a bit fishy. Like
uh, for me,
like this particular week.
yeah, if I was to bet on it, I would say it is more coincidence, honestly. But it is funny that it is a bit of a coincidence, and it's fun to imagine that it is sinister and suspicious and whatnot. But if you would say no, let's put $100 on it right now, I probably would bet that it is just coincidence. And I think their development timelines are longer, though I'm sure they did sit down and go like, oh wow, that does conflict with Fateless a bit. Ah, that's good, great, we'll take that win.
Well, I mean,
You
they
know,
also have a track record of using uh, other IPs or being heavily influenced by other IPs.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
sure.
some of their character designs are definitely borrowing uh, lore and graphics from other IPs, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any examples of that actually off the top of your head?
Oh, people, I remember early on in the game, people actually did a whole comparison
Oh,
of
really?
that these are like straight rips out of
Oh.
other like legacy uh anime and various different things. I
Huh.
don't actually really. I
Huh.
remember Foley is meant to be a rip off of someone, but I can't
Oh,
remember who.
yeah, that one is true actually. That he's based on some like superhero movie character. Um yeah, like that one is very clear. Yeah, yeah, I
And I
think
think that there were quite a few other ones of the earlier
right,
uh,
right.
champions that were
Yeah.
meant to be.
I did see
Yeah, they were quite
comments.
shameless
Yeah, I mean,
about
when
it.
this Norse stuff was revealed, I just see people were like, you know what, Ulton of the Shell is quite like Foley, not Foley, he's quite like Loki, really. So, it's like, people were thinking, they wouldn't add Loki to the game. He's quite like Loki, and I was like, oh, he is quite in the vibe. Or one I think is not a rip off of anything, but I feel like Alsgore feels like a bit of a composite of Arthas from World of Warcraft with like Thor. It looks like
Yeah,
Arthas but with a
maybe.
big
Actually,
hammer.
that's another one.
Yeah.
Minaya and Coronar is Beauty and the Beast.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, for
So,
sure.
which is an IP, as
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. But well, there we go. I mean, I think we've talked about a lot of stuff here today. Lots of. I'm sure. I don't know. Have you talked about quitting the game like soon in other videos and whatnot? Or
I
is this
kind
new?
of mentioned it loosely on one of my videos that I'm getting fatigued with the game, and one of the
Yeah,
reasons I didn't do uh the fusion
yeah,
was that.
yeah.
And it's also like the actual cadence of my videos has
You're
has
gone there.
fallen off a cliff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've been sat on a couple of videos that I've been meant to do for a while, and I just haven't bothered doing them because I'm
The
just like, I
signs
just
are
can't be
there.
bothered. Exactly.
Right. Right.
But in terms of actually having a specific cutoff in mind, this is the first time I've said
Okay.
that.
There we go. Well, guys, you can find Eharbad's channel link below. It will be active for another month, and then you're out of luck. So go subscribe. If it doesn't cost you much, it's just a month of watching stuff. It's fine. Go do it. There we go. Well, listen, thanks Eharbad for joining. It's gonna be sad. Like, well, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to restart the podcast or something for Godforge if we both end up getting into it. I mean, we'll see what happens. It's gonna be
Yeah,
sad.
exactly. I mean, there's always other games. There's always other
Yeah, true.
endeavors. It's not like I'll drop off the planet completely.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe the raid planet.
Fair, fair. But yeah, anything you want to say then as we wrap this one up?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I do
Mm.
wonder what's the timing of this one.
The
Don't
runtime, we are almost an hour and a half. This is your
Oh, is
feature
that a
length
new
movie.
record? Are we knocking it out of the park for the potentially the last
That's it.
collab we have? Like that is the longest. I respect anyone who's watched it to the end,
Yeah.
and
Well, I mean, anyone who's
applause
watched this,
to
we've
you.
got you halfway through your daily grind and raid. Enjoy the other half. um, yeah. All right. I think we'll leave it there. Listen, Airbad, thanks for jumping on. Who knows? We might squeeze another one in before you leave. We'll see what happens.
Maybe a
Um,
farewell bash, a live
farewell,
stream
Bash.
party or something. Who
Yeah,
knows?
it's appropriate. But yeah, thanks to everyone for watching. Check out Eharbad's channel for the final month, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.